I'm here tonight with Keni Garver and Marvin Pate. It's September 5th, 2006 at about 6:50 p.m. at their home at 115 South Harding Road. 114 South Harding Road. If you'd both state your names, please.
Keni Garver.
Marvin Pate.
Okay. Keni and Marvin, could you please state what your ethnic or racial background is?
I'm Caucasian.
I'm African American.
All right. For the two of you, what's your earliest memory as a child?
Mine was a little farm town called St. Paris near Urbana, Ohio, country town, and I have 3 sisters and me, but I was scared of my dad. He was very strict, and the sisters ran the roost, and still do.
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, went to school in Columbus, and I didn't come out until I was 21
Come here, Mac.
years of age.
Come here, Mac.
What year were each of you born?
I was born in 41.
I was born in 1939.
Keni, where was it that you were born?
A little farm town called St. Paris, Ohio.
All right. And Marvin, you said you were born here in Columbus?
Columbus.
What part of Columbus did you grow up in?
Hilltop.
All right. And did you go to elementary school and high school in the same town?
Yes, Graham High School.
All right. And
Founded by A.B. Graham.
all right. How old were you?
Founded 4-H.
Oh, okay. All right. How old were you when you realized that you might be different than the other kids?
When I was in Yale, the Culinary Institute of America in New Haven, learning to be a chef.
And how old were you at that point?
19.
Okay. And what made you realize that you were different?
I got raped in the dorm first night at school, and that was it. Of course, in those days, there were no women students. It was strictly male. In 1959 was the year I started living in New Haven, Connecticut.
And Marvin, when was it that you realized that you
Came
might...
out in the service. I was in the Air Force.
All right. And I think you said before this was when you were 21?
When I came out, it was 21, but I actually came out at 20. I was in the Air Force.
All right. And how did that come about?
Well, one of my roommates was scared of thunderstorms, and he climbed into bed with me. And I used to be scared of thunderstorms when I was a kid. But then one day my mother left, and she said, she went to the store, and she said, well, you're going to stay at the house. And I said, fine. And it thundered and lightning, and I watched it, and I never was scared of it again. And when this guy, I understood what he was doing, but I didn't understand, I woke up, and there he was, and I came out.
When the two of you were growing up, did you ever hear anyone talk about gay people?
Not my little farm town, was queer, and I knew very few in my town that was, so I just didn't fool with it, because it was bad,
Well, when I grew up, all the choir directors, the organ players, the piano players, and all the choirs in the churches were all gay. Everybody knew it. They knew that they were gay. There was no big deal about it. My mother was against it because in those days they thought that every gay person wanted to dress in women's clothes. There was no such thing as a man dressing in man's clothes and being with a man because the guy looked like a man. They thought that all gay people wanted to look like a woman. So that, and I can remember my mother saying, any of my kids that were going to be gay, I will see them in a grave before I let them be gay.
Wow.
I remember that very vividly. And that was about 7 or 8 years old.
Wow. Do you remember how that topic came up?
No, because, I think, yes, I do remember. We had, we were laughing about the choir director because he had all this lipstick and rouge and stuff on. And I remarked to my mother when I came home, I said, the choir director had rouge on. He said, well, he's a woman. I said, it's a man. He's a woman. That's what my mother said. And she said, you don't act or be like him. I can always remember that.
Were these people in the church that were gay, were they married or?
Oh no, gracious, everybody knew they were gay. They could care less. They could care less. They knew them. The only thing that I ever remember was we had a Boy Scout leader who was married, had 4 kids, and we used to go to Camp Lazarus in the summer, for 2 weeks in the summer, a Boy Scout camp, and he would try to climb into bed with all the kids in Boy Scout camp. And most of the kids, when they came home, they used to tell their parents, they said, the scoutmaster climbed in our bed and sucked our dickies. That's what they used to say.
Wow.
So, of course, he was ostracized and they put him out of the church and his family left him and all that stuff. And my mother, I can remember my mother taking me to the doctor and saying, my mother said, did he get in your bed? I said, no, he didn't get in my bed. I said, I was at the end of the hall. He was through by the time he got to the end of me. And she took me to the doctor and had me checked to see if I had been molested. Wow. I can remember that.
How old were you when you joined the military?
I was 18. I joined it at 17, but my mother would not sign for me. So I had already joined, and I went to Ohio State for a year, and then when I turned 18, I went to the military in June.
When you were in high school, did you ever hear about places that gay people would meet in Columbus or hear about?
No, all the people, the guy, there was a guy, he was a twin. His parents had a lot of money. They bought a 4-unit condo in Westgate. His family lived next door. They had an apartment for the daughter and an apartment for the son. They lived in the apartment. They could have their own friends. He did everybody on the football team but me, because I had a girlfriend at the time. And he always told me that there was places to go, but I wasn't out because I was going with a girl. And he said, oh, you'll come out later. When I got out of the service at the time, he was working at Walker's downtown, the old Walker's clothing store. He was a salesman at Walker's. Very men's store. He was very elegant. He was always elegant, you know, the way he dressed and everything. And he was working there. And Kenny was working. I had started dating Kenny then, and he was working at Kuenning's, which was a restaurant.
19 North High.
And he worked almost next door. And I had gone down there to have lunch with Kenny. And I had went into Walker's first because I knew he worked there and been in to see him. And he said, well, what are you in here for? I said, well, maybe I'll buy some clothes. I said, I'm going to see my boyfriend next door. He said, oh, you finally came out. And I said, oh, yeah, you know. And he was really nice. He was really a nice guy.
Walker's was there for years. Very high class men's clothing.
Did you go to the Culinary Institute right after you graduated from high school? And how long?
Graduated 1 week, went up there the next.
All right. And how long were you there?
I was there two years. And then that's all you went. Now
okay.
You can go 4.
All right. After you completed your studies there, did you come back to Columbus then?
Came back.
No, you didn't come to Columbus.
Well, I went to
Cleveland.
Ashland. Worked in Lorraine.
The Ashland Country Club.
Mm-hmm. And then Kenning's, which is right next to Walker's at 19 North High. They were building the Christopher Inn, and one of the guys on the board knew about the Culinary Institute, and they said, you better go interview this guy. He's a graduate. Hired me. That was my first big chef job. I opened the Christopher.
All right. When you worked at the Ashland Country Club prior to coming back to here?
From Yale to Lorraine, Ohio.
All right. Was there a gay life in Ashland?
No. I lived with my aunt and uncle. My uncle was a principal at Ashland High School, so I knew not one person.
All right. What year was it that the two of you met?
Well, we just had our 45th anniversary Friday, which was first. Labor Day.
We met at the Preview Lounge.
I'm sorry, the what lounge?
Preview Lounge.
That was a real well-known gay bar at 4th and Long.
And I was getting ready to get married. I was getting 6 weeks. I was getting married in 6 weeks. I met him one weekend and broke the engagement 3 weeks later.
And we live, get this, we live behind the art gallery where it is now at 69 East Gay Street. That was our address. And everybody in that building, small apartment building, was gay.
And it was right across the street from the Gay Street Baptist Church. And on Sunday morning, you could hear the choir through our window.
I used to listen.
All right, so you were both at the Preview Lounge?
Yeah, I had a roommate who liked blacks. because that wasn't in then. He never saw it. And he was a male nurse at University Hospital. Oh, come down with me, please. So I came down there with him and to the preview, and that's why I met Marvin.
Now, was this a gay bar or like a mixed bar?
Well, the thing was, in those years, the owner of the bar was a gay man. He said, this side of the bar is gay, this side of the bar is straight. So in the daytime, the whole bar was gay. And in the evening, they had jazz. And on the other side of the wall, they said was straight. And they had waitresses that would take the thing. And if the gay people came in the evening, they had sit at the bar. They weren't supposed to go over to the straight side of the bar. They were supposed to stay on the gay side of the bar. So that was his way of trying to differentiate between gay and straight.
It was there for years.
And was the clientele
Mixed.
Racially mixed as well?
It was racially mixed.
All right.
The so-called elites of Columbus wouldn't come there unless they were slumming. If they were slumming, then you could see them there. But they wouldn't come there unless they so-called were slumming.
The big gay bar then was the Kismet. We used to go there all the time.
But see, the Kismet wasn't where everybody thinks the Kismet was, at where the Eagles it was before it closed. It was right across from the fire station, which is the Fire Station Museum. That building, which is now an architectural thing, they tore that down and built that architectural place there. That was Eddie Santucci, who used to own the Pink Poodle. So you're going back, that's 40s and 50s. See, because I'm talking about the 50s and the 40s, and that was, and everybody that are in their 50s always think of Kismet as where the Eagles is. That's not the original Kismet. That is not the original Kismet.
Who was this Eddie Santucci person?
He got murdered.
Well, they can't prove that. They can't prove it. He was in the hospital. He had a heart attack. And his lover was from West Virginia. Eddie liked rough guys.
Yeah, he did.
Those, that beat him up and stuff like that. He loved that. He wanted to see the blood running and stuff.
He lived on Beck Street in Shermanville.
So he asked this guy to bring him in this sandwich. Well, he couldn't eat it, and it killed him. It killed him. Everybody says that the guy choked him to death, but they can't prove it. There's no proof of that. They think that because he ate the sandwich that he wasn't supposed to eat, that killed him. But no one is around to prove that was,
And before the Kismet, he had another a bar called the Pink Poodle?
Pink Poodle. That was in
where
the 40s.
Where was that at?
The Pink Poodle was down on... No. The Pink Poodle was down on Mound Street. It was a little hole in the wall. It was a little hole in the wall. I never went to the Pink Poodle because I wasn't out then, so I didn't go. Either. I knew where it was, but I was too scared to go into it.
I never went there either.
No, Keni never went to it, but I was too scared to go into it. And two, I worked, when I got out of the service, I went back to work at Westinghouse, and there was a lesbian that worked there that I got to be real good friends with, she said, you've got to go to this bar. And she's the first one that took me into a gay bar. Kenny had been to gay bars because he used to perform in gay bars.
I used to be a dancer.
Oh, okay. Was that here in Columbus?
Yeah.
And then right after the Kismet closed, we went to the Kairai. Have you heard about the Kairai?
The Kairai is
corner, Parsons and Oak.
Is Parsons and Oak.
Now, how do you spell that?
K-I-R-I. Kairai.
All right.
Saul Myers, he owned the bar. He was a Jewish man. His son's a lawyer. And he opened that bar. And gays went there. We went there for years.
It was a piano bar.
Piano
and they had a black piano, Edie Clark. And they had a runway, winding stairway that went up to a little lounge. I used to dance on that thing.
How did you get started with the dancing?
I taught Arthur Murray when I was in college.
That's where he worked his way through school.
Yeah.
And we had all these friends that were Arthur Murray teachers that we were always good friends with.
All the Arthur Murray teachers were gay. And there was a hotel downtown then called the Neal House, old hotel. And every Friday night, the Arthur Murray Studios made us go down there and dance with women. That was a popular place. And the chef at the Neal House was gay, Harry Rose. He's in here on my shelf. He's cremated and we have his ashes.
So was the Kismet the first bar that you went into then?
Was for me. Was for me.
You were talking about the lesbian from Westinghouse that you worked with.
Yeah, she took me to the Kismet. No, because the first gay bar, because I had met Keni first.
Well, the Kismet was my first gay bar.
But it wasn't mine. It wasn't mine. The Preview was my first. No, Kismet, the Preview, because I met you at the Kismet. I mean, at the Preview before we went to the Kismet.
Yeah, that's true.
We met at the Preview. That was a mixed bar. And then strictly gay bar that we went to was when we went to the Kismet. Because I went before Keni because these girls had taken me. And then I took Keni there. And, we said, and it was so funny because you could not dance together. You couldn't dance. You had to dance with a woman or you couldn't dance. You couldn't hold hands, you couldn't kiss.
We're at the Kismet?
Yeah.
No, but Eddie let us dance.
No. If a policeman was in there, you could not dance. You couldn't hold hands. You couldn't do anything because they would arrest you.
Wow.
They would arrest you.
But
so in a gay bar, you weren't allowed to touch?
You couldn't touch. You couldn't. If I was going to put my hand on your... Oh, no. Policeman was in there. No.
But the trade winds came along then.
No, the trade winds came along, but see, I wasn't allowed in the trade winds.
Yeah, they weren't very nice to us.
The Trade Winds was another bar that opened. It was a gay bar that opened after the Kismet.
We're talking like the early 60s?
Yeah.
This was, early 60s. Okay. And the group that found it, basically, they wanted a bar, as they called it, for their crowd. That's why the Trade Winds opened.
It was dressy.
It was dressy. They would tell you that if you went out with a black guy, you could take him home, but do not have him out of your house before the sun rises. You could not go, a black man could not go into the Trade Winds. They would not let you into
Well, they
the
didn't
trade
want
winds.
to.
What would they say to you if you tried to get in?
You're not allowed.
Really?
You're not allowed in here.
Well, that was in the early 60s. All that.
Kenny went down with a good friend of ours, a light-skinned black guy that graduated from Ohio University. He was a professor out in California. He had come home, and Kenny and him were going to go out for drinks. And he said, well, let's go down to the trade winds. Kenny took him down there. They would not serve him. They told Kenny, he said, we can't serve him because he's black. So Kenny and them came home. I got home and I said, why? I said, why are you home so early? They said, well, he wouldn't serve John. So I went down there. Seems to say that I wasn't very nice when I was in there. I had got out of the military. I took my gun down there. I walked in the bar and talked to the owner's sister, and I said, why didn't you serve them? Well, we didn't realize who they were. I said, bullshit. So I proceeded to act a fool. And Hank, who was the owner at the time, came over and said something to me, and I snatched him. And I told him, I said, if you ever see that white boy and that black guy and that in here again, you will serve them. I said, I don't need to come in here, but you will serve them. I don't care if I associate with you. And I told him to go right. I went home and told him to go back down there and have a drink. I did. I went home and told him to go back down there and have a drink.
We rarely went in there.
But y'all never did. But the thing was that when me and Kenny started dating, they tried everything they could to break us up. They used to call Kenny. They said, well, we won't come to the Christopher Inn if you continue to date him. We won't bring our crowd in there and all that stuff.
But they all came.
And I told Kenny, I said, if that's going to break us up, I said, I'm not going to ruin your reputation as a chef. I said, I will leave the situation. And he said, no. Then all of a sudden, I get a call one day. They're having a brunch. They called Kenny and said, well, we didn't know that Marvin has a degree from college, and he's done this and done that, and you're socially acceptable to our crowd now. And I said, what does that mean? I said, I'm still black. Don't demean me by saying because I have a degree that I'm socially accepted to your crowd. I mean, I said, we're busy. And I told Kenny, I said, hang the phone up. Hang the phone up. And so what we did, we made up our minds. I told Kenny, I said, we don't have to deal with this. So we got our own group of friends, and we started developing a whole different group that we ran out with. So the Kai Rai and other bars, we didn't socialize with that group. Remember?
The bar across from the fairgrounds.
Yeah, Rosemary.
Rosemary.
But remember, we had a whole different group of friends, and they didn't realize this. And all of a sudden, all that group started shrinking, and they said, well, where's all our friends? All these friends are with Kenny and Marvin's group. Where, And we said, well, we don't need you.
And they started dying out.
And then they all started dying off, and then all of a sudden, that's just like the Berwick Ball. The Berwick Berwick
You
Ball.
probably heard about that happening.
I went to it in the 80s.
The Berwick Ball, you very
never
seldom see
missed.
blacks at the Berwick Ball. That was strictly white. And Kenny was real good friends with,
Susie's.
Susie's.
Still do on Berwick.
They still own it. And he said, why don't y'all come to it? I said, we're not allowed. He said, what do you mean? What you mean you're not allowed? I said, they don't want me at the Berwick Ball. And he said, hey, it's at my place, you come.
But we went.
And we went.
Years.
And, but it was, it was one of those things. And then now all of a sudden, that was why when they had this thing, I told Kenny, I said, when you was talking about having those two things, and they said they were going to do that, I said, I'm not going to disrupt this thing. Because I would go down there and I would probably disrupt it. And I wasn't going to do it. He said it was the times. It wasn't the times. It was the way they were. It was the way they were. I don't like pushing things under. If it's there, it's there. It's there. The racism as far as the gay community is still there. It's still there. And
Well, we don't see that now.
well, we don't see it because we don't go out a lot, Kenneth. We have our friends and we run with our straight friends that we know, that we run around. We run around with our gay friends that we know. We go to parties with people we know and stuff like that. And when we go out, we don't have that trouble. Even when we go to Florida, we don't have that trouble. We have a good time in Florida.
Those days are over.
But still, it's there. I never can forget some of that stuff. It's still here.
Yeah.
It's still here. And when people tell me, oh, this never happened, bullshit. I'm sorry. Some things I can't forget. Kenny can forget it. Kenny's white. He can forget those things. He says, oh, it's over with. I'm black. I grew up with this stuff. I grew up with racism in the city of Columbus since I was born. My high school class, I went to West High School, 1956. We were at the Desher Wallet Hotel, and we had rooms for the night and all that stuff like that. I went in. We had already paid our registration and stuff like that. I went in to register, and the man said, you can't register here. I said, I'm with the West High class. Oh, there's no blacks go to West High School. I said, I go to West High School. The principal came up behind me and said, Marvin, what's wrong? I said, he's saying that we don't have a room here. He said, oh, yes, you do. And he said, well, the manager outright told him, he said, I didn't know blacks went to West High School. He said, oh, yes, we have blacks in it, and you will register them. And the guy just, his mouth flew open. There was a restaurant called Bill's Restaurant that blacks couldn't go to in the city of Columbus. It was right across from the State House, the state capitol. Couldn't go in it. You could go in the back if you worked there.
I don't know where that was.
The Mills Restaurant, right across. Yeah.
That was 19.
Yes, right across from the thing. You remember that?
I remember.
Gracious, I couldn't even go in there. Couldn't go in there. So some stuff I can't forget. And, I'm sorry that I get so anti-thing, but I just couldn't forget that stuff. And to this day, some of the stuff I can't forget. I can't forget. People forget it, but I can't. I love Kenny dearly, and I love all my friends, but some things I can't forget. I cannot forget.
Did you ever have difficulty getting into any other gay nightclubs or establishments?
Oh, yes. Oh, gracious. Oh, all of them. Wait a minute, I'll be right back. Talk to Keni for a minute. I gotta calm down.
Sorry he got so wound up.
Oh, it's all right. Where was it that you did your dancing at? What clubs was it that you danced at?
The first club I ever danced in was the Kismet.
Like if they would charge a $2 cover charge at the old Kismet, at the new Kismet, what they call the new Kismet, to get in, the cover charge was $2. For blacks, it was $10.
Oh, I don't remember that.
We didn't go there, Kenneth. But I've known black friends of mine that went there. Their friends would be charged $2. They would be charged $10.
The only one I remember that did that was the one they tore down.
What?
Down by Nationwide. The bar where...
Herbie's?
Herbie. Yeah, Herbie's.
Well, Herbie's didn't do that until, whatchamacallin'.
They raised their...
We never paid. We never had to pay.
Well, we knew them.
Because we knew the owner. But anybody else that came in there was a cover charge, and it was different for black and whites going into that bar for the night. Kenny took his sister there.
Have you ever heard of Herbie's?
Sure. I went there before.
It was her birthday, and we took her there, and the stripper came by and did a strip right on it. It had his sister come out on the floor and all that stuff. But we didn't have to pay the cover charge. But they did have a separate charge. Now, if you were with a white person when they went in, they wouldn't charge it different. But if you were by yourself, the charge was different. Now, I don't know how it is now because we don't go out an awful lot late at night. Since Kenny had his stroke and was in the wheelchair, we go out occasionally because there's a friend that lives 3 doors down from us. She likes to go to the gay bars. And we go out with her. Now we'll go to the Pyramid. Well, I've known Troy since he was...
In Tremont.
Since Troy was out of the Marine Corps. When he got out of the Marine Corps, I met him. I've known him since when he started Club 20, and bought it from the other owner, and then when he had the old Pyramid and the new Pyramid. And so I take Kenny there, and he'll go there. But we don't go out an awful lot late at night unless we're going out to dinner or something like that, because I just don't want to take him out and, he doesn't drink anymore because of his stroke, and he's got diabetes, and so I try not to do that. If I go out to have a drink, it's in the daytime when he's at daycare.
You mentioned a little while ago some of the rules that they had out the bars, such as you can't dance, you can't hold hands, and so forth. Did you ever actually hear about or witness any problems between the police?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember it.
Yeah, I was at the Kismet, the old Kismet, when the policeman came and slammed his billy club on a guy's hand.
For holding hands?
For holding hands.
So, did the police just stop by occasionally and walk?
Oh yeah, they were, because they knew it was a gay bar, so they were going to try to close it down. Was that something that happened like every week or?
No.
Well, every 3 days. The guy, you didn't realize that, Kenneth. The guy the policeman that used to come in all the time, he didn't know that Eddie Santucci was a good friend, in fact had grown up with the head of the vice squad of the Columbus Police Department. Eddie had asked him to come in to see this, what was going on. So the guy came in, and this guy reached over and grabbed his lover's hand. And this policeman took his billy club and literally just said, boom, right on his hand. You can't do that, you fucking faggots. So the head,
Horny man.
that's what he said.
Wow.
I'm telling you what he said. The head of the vice squad at that time got up and said, you can't do that. And so the guy didn't realize who the guy was until he flashed his badge. And once he realized that, he didn't know what to say. He said, well, this is a faggot bar. And that's what the policeman told the guy, the vice squad man. And he said, I'll see you outside. Go on. And he said, you'll never have any trouble. And we never had any, and Eddie never had any trouble since after that. But that used to happen all the time. Before that, oh gracious, yes. And when the grotto, you remember the old grotto? On Sunday, there was a shell filling station across the street. So they had...
This was when the grotto was on South High?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the shell filling station was always closed on Sundays. So they told him, well, if you pay us so much money, you can park over here. So the police would come down there, and if you cross the street, they would try to give you jaywalking tickets for not going to the corner. And so they would park there every Sunday to do that.
I used to take food down there.
I know
They pay me for it.
it. I know it. But
For Sunday.
I remember, but they used to, oh yeah, that was a big deal. And they would say, and they would call you all kinds of names. Oh, you're going in that queer bar. Yeah. They tried to give me a jaywalking ticket, and I told the guy, I said, give it to me. I'll take it. So then the guy said, nah, he said, you want this ticket too bad. I'm not giving you a ticket. Because what the owner was doing, he was collecting them all, and they were taking them downtown. They had all these lawyers and stuff like that, and they said, see, they've got all these problems in the city, and they're coming down here worrying about us going across the street when we already have residual rights with the thing, and the judge just threw everything out. Threw everything out. And so they stopped that, but, oh yeah, that went on for a while. Police in Columbus were terrible.
Some other people have told me that they had heard about instances where men were arrested because they were dressed like women and...
Black drag queens that were out Saturday night. They worked for me at the hotel. Oh, I did that a lot.
Michael was a drag queen. Well, he wasn't a drag queen.
Yeah.
But Michael would dress in drag, especially on Halloween. And this Halloween, he had parked in the parking lot and walked across the street. They arrested him for having women's clothes on. And he was going into the car ride for Halloween. And Saul got his son, who was a lawyer, went down and got Michael out of jail. But they arrested him because he was wearing women's clothes. Well, Halloween was the thing at that time. That was the time that you could dress in whatever you wanted to. But they targeted the car ride because they knew it was a Halloween ball thing, and they were having a contest, and all these guys were going to dress in drag. And so they arrested, Michael wasn't the only one, they arrested probably 6 or 8 people that had walked across the street.
I can't believe you never heard of the car ride.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
but see, that was before his time, probably. That was before his time. It was a jewelry store. You know where Elemental is?
Mm-hmm.
All right, the building, you go across the street. It's a check cashing place now.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Kyra.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very popular.
That was the Kyra. That was a fun bar. That was one of the most fun bars in Columbus for a lot of years. And then Saul got so old, and his son ran it for a while, but he had his law business downtown. And he said, I can't run this. I'm not a bar owner and stuff. So he had sold it.
Was this Saul person straight?
Saul was straight. Oh yeah, even his son was straight.
How was it that this straight old man came to...
He liked all the gays. He loved them.
He was very friendly.
He loved them. He said they were, he said, I've never met a group of people that are so nice.
And
they don't cause any trouble. They come in and buy their drinks.
That bar named Grace.
Yeah, Grace.
She loved gays.
And he said, I don't have any trouble out of the gays. He said, they might want to go down in my basement and play a little hanky-panky in the bathroom. But he said, other than that, I don't have no trouble out of it. And he loved it. I mean, he made money.
Sure.
He made money. He sent his kid through law school walking on in that bar. And his son loved it. I mean, his son would come in. I mean, most of the gays practically raised his kid because his kid was young then. And he'd come in and gays would practically babysitted his kid, So he knew all the gays, And when he became a lawyer, a lot of the gays went to him. They went to him, yeah.
What was Saul's last name?
Myers.
Okay.
Saul Myers.
Myers.
Belonged to Goodasaka.
So the young men that worked for you that got arrested for dressing like women?
You remember Joe, the bar boy?
So what happened with them? Was it during Halloween or was it...
No.
Oh, they went all the time.
Joe dressed in drag all the time.
There used to be a Willie's after our bar. When I would go to work on Sunday mornings, I can go to Willie's and make Joe and these other drag queens straighten up and go to work, or I'd fire them. Because the manager of the hotel said one time, listen, you're the queen bee of this barnyard. Straighten them up and get them out of here.
So where was this Willie's place at?
It was right behind the
Street.
cathedral.
Right behind the Christopher Inn.
It was catty-corner from the cathedral.
The house
St.
is still there. It's
Cathedral.
attorneys now.
But it was like an after hours?
It was after hours.
It was
and
open
all
all
the gays
night.
and straights would go there.
All
I'm going to tell you who went there at the time. On early Sunday morning, you'd have the chief of police, you'd have the mayor of the city of Columbus, you had
he was a big
the head prostitute in Columbus, who was called Big Stockings. You had the numbers man. They would be all there, and they would gamble on Sunday morning. Willie would say, "You can't go in that big room. That's where all the big wheels are." Mm-hmm. So he said, "If you want to see who they're, come here. He opened up the door, and he said, and here was the mayor and all of them in there. I knew most of them. They were all in there playing cards. And then on Monday morning, you'd hear the mayor talk about, we're going to clean up all this corruption and stuff in Columbus. And here's the chief of police, and you had all these people sitting in there playing cards and gambling for big money. And you had the biggest prostitute in Columbus, who had all the prostitutes in Columbus. In fact, not only was she doing female prostitutes, she was doing male prostitutes. Bobby was one of the biggest prostitutes in Columbus.
You ever hear of him?
Mm-mm.
He was with the Jewelbox Review for years. He used to do a number with snakes. The prostitutes on Parsons Avenue at one time went down to the police department and wanted Bobby arrested for taking all their tricks.
Oh, he was notorious. He used to work for
He worked for TAT.
Jimmy Carova.
He worked for TAT till he died.
This day, Jimmy still runs TAT.
He said that was his best employee. He said he never worried about Bobby showing up for the job. Bobby worked for him for years till he died.
David Kramer.
Yeah, worked on him for years.
So what's this Jewel Box Review?
It was a very well-known drag show. They used to play there on the Long Street upstairs.
Yeah, but they played all over the country.
Yeah, they
And
did.
the Jewel Box Review is not like the drag queens you see now.
They were
Because
beautiful.
they sang with their own voices. They would dub, they would cut out the voice of whoever was singing. They would have the music, but they would use their own voices to sing.
They were all.
They did, you had to sing with your own voice. If you didn't, you couldn't mimic like these queens do now.
What was the name of that bar on Long Street upstairs? I forget.
No, not Seattle. Macon. No, not the Macon. No, the Macon was down. I'll think of it in a minute. You asked me too fast.
But this is where they performed?
Oh, they performed all over, but...
Was this Columbus people? Was it like a Columbus-based?
No. A lot. There were some people from Columbus, but they were from all over the country. They would come here.
You never heard of the Jewel Box.
You had all these straight people. You had all these straight people that go. Half of Bexley go. A lot of the friends that we run around with went to these shows.
Was this like the 60s or the 70s?
The 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
60s and 70s.
The Jewel Box Review was still in California.
And remember, we seen it. You know what? It was so comical because we had gone to Florida one year, and we went to see who was it?
It was a Fountain Blue.
Who was went to see, and he was so arrogant we didn't go see him. Neil Sedaka. Neil Sedaka.
Dirtiest mouth.
He just acted a fool. He said, "Oh, y'all come to see me and blah, 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 blah. If I don't do any, he would just, people walked out." So we went to see, the Jewel Box Review was in the lounge show
At the
Fountain Blue. And the place was packed. Neil Sedaka didn't have 50 people in to see him. And everybody went to see the Jewel Box Review. And I mean, I told Kenny, I said that if I ever see him again, I could care less.
You never have.
And we've never gone to see him since.
And this Bobby, was he, at some point he performed with the Jewel Box Review?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Performed with him for about, 10, 12 years.
Long time.
And then he decided to retire. I've known him since he was a kid. In fact, I remember he beat up a Columbus policeman in Columbus. In fact, I grew up with the policeman that he beat up. Bobby was at the skating rink at 18th and Mound. And he was all in high drag and everything and was skating with his skirt and everything. And this policeman said, "You don't need to be out there with them women dancing. You're just a drag queen." And Bobby said, "Well, then you take this dress off of me." And he said, "Well, I would." He said, "You take that gun off, I'll whoop your ass." So this policeman decided, "I'm going to take my gun off." He took his gun off and stuff, put it in his cruiser, and came back in. And in the middle of the floor of the skating rink, went out there. Bobby beat the living shit out of this policeman. literally beat the shit out of him.
In a dress.
He did. He didn't take his skirt off. He said, I don't need them to take my skirt off to whoop your ass.
He didn't care.
The only thing he took off was his shoe, was his skates. And literally beat the shit out of this policeman.
I guess you'd have to be tough if you were going to...
Oh, he grew up tough. His brother, to this day, always, I knew his brother. His brother was a year older than Bobby. And his brother used to say, he said, because Bobby, as a kid, he always had ringlets in his hair. His mother always would curl his hair and all that stuff. He was a queen when he was a kid. And his brother always said, well, I'm going to have to fight all the time for my brother. Well, shit, his brother, Bobby, was beating up guys for keeping his brother from getting beat up. And they just didn't fool with Bobby. They just did not fool. Bobby could go in any bar in this city and walk in and guys do better than said, oh, here comes the queen. Oh, no. And Bobby said, what'd you say? Where is the queen? Where is he? You see him? You tell him to come see me. He said, I'm the only queen in this bar. And Lord, one guy tried to, Bobby would knock him silly. I mean, and to look at him, you didn't think he could, but that boy could fight.
He hadn't been dead very long.
No, he's probably been dead about a few years. But shit, Bobby was almost 75.
He wasn't that old.
Yeah, he was.
Maybe.
I know how old he was. I know I'm 67, kind of. Bobby was 3 years older than me, 3 or 4 years older than me. His brother was 2 years older than me. Oh yeah.
So other than going out to a bar, were there other ways that gay people met back in the 50s and 60s?
Oh yeah. Well, house parties.
Yeah, the house parties were big.
Oh, that was a big
Tell me about that.
Oh, we used to have hat parties and brooch parties and high heel
parties.
There's a picture in there on our side.
Oh yeah, I'll show it to you. We had a hat and heel party. Hat and heel party. That's fine.
It's on the shelf there. Then I got in with Vaud-Villities. Have you ever seen one? Mm-hmm. I was in it 17 years.
Oh, wow.
I was a good singer and dancer.
Oh, yeah, it is. This is one of them.
We had a curved stairway.
We had our other house. We had a curved stairway in our one house.
Oh.
And that's our hat and heel party.
Oh, that's great.
And we just said you were supposed to wear a hat or heels, but some of them, like the one guy on the end, he decided to wear a dress and all that stuff. So we didn't care, but I mean,
Who's that?
Remember there was a guy that went with the guy that sang in Vaud-Villities with
Tim?
No, not Tim.
The
bald-headed guy.
Cliff.
That was Cliff's lover at the time. That they said was always Mr. Big Dick.
So how did these house parties work? I mean, did you have to have an invitation? Was there an admission?
Well, invitation, or you called and, you said, well, call so-and-so or so-and-so. Or you sent out invitations if you had money at the time.
You know Ed and Tim?
Invitations.
They had a big garden party Sunday.
Yeah.
Ed Heckle and
Tim Atkins.
They were in this one. Packed Ed's in here.
Yeah, often they're in there. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, but that's what you did. You sent out invitations.
Sunday, and they live in Upper Arlington now. They did live in Summit Chase. And
yeah, Summit Chase used to be the big gay
Oh, that was a very gay building. Red, white, and blue at Summit Chase were loaded with parties.
Yeah. They all live now at Marinova. That's the big thing now. Marinova, him, E.G. Booksy, and...
You know when that guy fell off the balcony?
Sure,
He was gay.
yeah, the fellow who was the head of the
Yeah, art
yeah.
art council.
Yeah,
he was gay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of us people know him, but they say, they figured that he was drunk.
He was drunk.
And didn't realize that how close he was to the edge. We was going on a cruise.
We used to take lots of cruises. In fact, we've been on 34 cruises.
Wow.
The last cruise we went on, we took almost 40 gay people with us.
Took your party with you.
The thing was...
Party in the bar every night.
What was so funny...
They would put in the newsletter, Friends and Dorothy's.
What make it so funny that we had met people, these friends of ours that was going on as they knew friends in Maine and New York and all those places, and they said, well, they want to go too.
And they
all went. So we all met, and then we decided that we were going to have a party in the rooms, so like a progressive dinner. But this was going to be progressive hors d'oeuvres. So our room was the last room because we had a balcony and we had a big room and so they all met in our room. So there was about 50 people in our room. And then we decided, we went to dinner. We were reading the paper and they said, well, friends of Dorothy are going to meet in the upper lounge at 11 o'clock. So we said, well, we'll go up and see what these friends of Dorothy is. Well, we go up there and there was about 200 people.
Oh, there were lots.
There was about 200 people that were that weren't friends of ours, but we got to meet all these people. And then come to find out there was more that didn't know what, they were younger and didn't know what Friends of Dorothy meant.
This was just recent.
So they said, what is Friends of Dorothy? And they said, well, that's the signal to gay people. And they said, we've never heard of that. So here's all these people. I mean, it was so funny.
So we met every night.
We met every night.
In a different bar.
Yeah. And the bar, the guys in the bar said, how can you get all the, the guy said, how many people are you going to have tonight? And I said, I don't know, we might have 50. And so the guy started putting up reserve signs because he knew that gays spend money.
Sure.
If they're going to drink, they're going to spend money. So these people would come and say, well, all these seats are reserved. And they said, yeah, they're reserved. We have a party in here. Well, we don't see anybody. Then all of a sudden, here comes all these guys. Hi, girls! And it was so funny.
It was quite a party.
Oh, we had a ball. We met these guys they're really nice guys. But the one guy, they're from North Carolina.
Yeah.
And they're old Southern people. I mean, the teas and stuff. And I said, and they live together. And I said, well, does your parents know that you're gay? And they said, well, we don't know, but we have teas and we go to socials and stuff like that. And I said, well, we don't know about coming down there to see. they said, well, y'all can come down. We'll take y'all to the socials, and Mama has a little thing after church, and we'll have to go to that. I said, oh, gracious, that's okay. I said, no, we ain't going there. No, I don't, because, they know it, because these guys been together for years. But they're old Southern,
it's unspoken.
It's unspoken, but you don't say anything because they're the leading family of their town. So you don't say anything about those people, And I told Keni, because we go up and we say, well, we're going out and doing something. Well, we're going to read a little while. And they'd have a book, and they'd be sitting there reading and stuff like that. And we'd be acting fool, and they'd say, well, we don't think we're going to have a little tea and take a little nap for the afternoon, Yeah. And but we had a good time with them.
Sounds like a good time.
Oh, yeah, we had a good time.
You mentioned something a little bit ago that I wanted to follow up on. You were talking about the mayor and the chief of police and so on. Mm-hmm. I was wondering, in the time that you've lived in Columbus, do you ever recall any issues about gay people, like maybe there being some sort of a controversy or a protest, or
no, not really.
Any things in the newspaper about gay things going on? Maybe like some bars were raided or somebody famous was arrested.
Not really.
Oh yeah. Yeah, remember when Paul Lynn? Yeah. Paul Lynn was arrested at whatchamacallit's house. The guy that that Weldon used to go with. That Paul Lynn had taken this guy from the Kismet bar, took him home, was sucking his dick by the pool, and the kid next door was watching out of his upstairs window, and his mother called the police, and they arrested Paul Lynn for indecent exposure.
Kenley Players.
For when he was at Kenley Players.
Now, what year would have this been?
Oh, gracious, that was in the 70s.
I got the picture somewhere.
I don't know where it is, Kenneth. It was in the 70s.
Yeah.
It was in the 70s.
That's when Kenley Players was still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was something that was like in the newspaper?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gracious. It hit the national news. Ah! And Miss Lynn could care less.
Yeah.
Ah! She said, oh, shit. He shouldn't have been looking out. You know what he said? He shouldn't have been looking out the window. The guy had a 8 or 10 foot high fence around his property, but the kid went up in his mother's bedroom and was looking out to see who was in the pool.
Sure.
And Paul Lynn was out there. It was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. What's the kid doing up that late at night? But then when the mother went up there, and Paul Lynn was just gobbling up this guy just like crazy, and his mother said, ah! So she called the law. She didn't know if the guy that owned the property, who was a gay guy, didn't know if he was home or didn't know that it was going on.
He worked for me and Chris Fran.
Were there ever any local elected officials or politicians that were rumored as being gay?
Nah, not that I remember. Not really. That was public.
No, I don't remember any that was supposed to have been out. I know that there was a lot that were gay supportive, but I don't know of any that I remember.
Dewey Stoke was supportive.
Yeah, Dewey was always been supportive.
He said, do you remember the Kyride days?
Oh yeah, he knows I remember the Kyride days.
Were there, do you recall in the early days, were there any clubs or organizations for gay people?
No.
Well, Dignity started.
No, Dignity didn't start till later, kind of. Dignity didn't start till the 90s.
No, it was before the 90s.
No, it didn't start till the 90s. I'm Catholic, Kenneth, and I went to the Newman Center for years. And Dignity did not start then. It did not start. It didn't start until the 90s.
Owensville.
Well, the 80s, maybe the late 80s.
80s.
Late 80s it started. But there was no, the only organization that we belonged to was the Black and White group.
Yeah, there used to be a Black and White club. They disbanded.
They disbanded because we had to join the National. We still belong to the National.
I don't know.
We do.
Never hear from them.
Well, no, you won't hear from them, but you know. But yeah, that was the only group that and then I can't remember when Stonewall started. 70, 80s, 70?
81.
81, 81. Remember, because whatchamacallit, when Stonewall first started, there was so much bickering in Stonewall that most people wouldn't join, because it was one of the reasons they wouldn't join was because it didn't represent everybody in the community. It only represented a small group and their little clique. It didn't go past their clique. If you needed any information or help, you couldn't get it at Stonewall.
Well,
So most people didn't join.
they got stronger at the highest age.
Well, the reason because once Ohio State recognized that there was a diversity group, but that was later, Kenneth. That was later.
Well, you probably know that. They're strong now, aren't they?
I think, you know what, as an organization, I think it's gone through periods of being strong and representative, and then other periods of being not as strong and not, which I think is typical for any nonprofit. I mean, when you've got a small staff and you're dependent on volunteers.
That's right.
You know, and the board's going to change, and so the focus is going to change over time.
And for a long time, the reason a lot of the guys wouldn't join because there was all the lesbians that were running it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about that, since you brought up that topic. When you guys first started going out, did women and men go to the same places?
They went to the same places, but the women wanted a bar of their own.
Yeah,
that's when they had their bar of their own. And they didn't socialize with men.
Which bar was that?
That was...
Talk about Summit Station?
Summit Station.
Okay.
They didn't want men in there. If you came in with a lesbian, they charge you $5 for a beer.
I don't remember that.
Ask Tiny. They didn't want men in there. Remember Madeline?
Yeah, I knew.
And all them, we used to call them bull dykes because they drove trucks most of the time. Most of them drove semis.
I was a pallbearer at her.
Yeah. They were, no, men and women didn't mix then. If you knew lesbians, you know, you were friends and stuff like that, but when it would come out to outside of the Kismet, the old Kismet, now the old Kismet, that's what I'm talking about. That's why I'm differentiating the old Kismet from what the Kismet was when it was on 4th, it was the Eagles. There's a differentiation in that because the girls would go there because they liked Eddie, because of Tracy, Maciosi, and them girls that worked in there as barmaids, and Tiny,
the big guy,
and
truck driver,
Madeline, big Madeline that drove, you know, and Hefty. You know, they drove semis.
Yeah, they were.
And but I'm telling you what, if you come in there, if they liked you, and people come in there and fuck you, Hefty would pick your ass up and throw you just like she took a man. She sat there, I've seen her. A guy broke a pool stick over her head. And she looked at him, she said, "Oh, you in trouble now." And Lord, she, the mental of it.
And the barber.
This was a straight guy that would
What
come
was the barber's name? Big guy.
Nora.
Nora. She was rough too.
Yeah.
I took her one night to see Sophie Tucker at the Miramar. That was a nightclub.
Yeah, she had to wear a dress and she hated that.
Oh, she hated it.
She hated it. She didn't want to wear a dress. She said, "I look like a damn fool in this fucking dress."
She was rough.
But no, they didn't mix.
How about, were there bars where just African American gay people went
No.
in the early days?
No. Most black gays went to black bars and then they just fit in. Because you have to realize, blacks growing up, we knew all the guys out east. Now, whether you're gay or straight, you knew them. Now, whether you wanted to put the make on a straight guy or not, that's up to you. There was no quote-unquote black bar for gays in the Columbus. There never has been. Never will be. Never will be, because they just
Tell me about, you said there was there's a black and white organization.
Tell
me about that.
It was called Black and White Men Together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a national. They used to have a local group here, and they had a group, and they had a national convention. One of their national conventions was here in Columbus, Ohio, at Ohio State University. Ohio State University hosted it. And for people that didn't have places to stay, they asked any of the black and white couples to put them up. We put that group up from the guys that we met from Detroit that we was friends with.
They were here.
They were at our house, and then they had that one white kid that also stayed at our house.
Yeah.
And they had and then they had meetings up at the Ohio Union, and some of the buildings up there held meetings, and that went on for a whole weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then when Randy died from a drug overdose in St. Thomas, they disbanded here, and all the people that belonged to the organization here was automatically absorbed into the national organization in Washington, D.C.
Do you remember about what year it was that the group first formed?
1985, 86, somewhere around in there, kind of.
Back years ago, like today, there's the local gay newspaper Outlook. Do you recall back in the 60s and 70s, were there gay publications?
No.
No.
No, it's word of mouth. You had to know somebody, or someone told you, "Hey, we're having a party," or somebody's having this. That was it. No, there was no gay publications.
How about, we talked about Berwick briefly as one of the annual events that was started in the early days. Were there any other annual events that went on?
Well, Westminster used to have a black and white ball.
Are you talking about Corbett Road?
Corbett.
Yeah.
Corbett used to have the black, yeah. So we were real good friends. Keni was real good friends with Corbett.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to have these things, because I remember the first one was on West Broad Street in the heart of the redneck district.
Was that in the old theater?
That was in that old theater.
All right.
There was a redneck bar right next to it, and I took Keni there, and we were getting ready to go, and these guys come out, and I took my gun. I had my .38, and these guys came out, and the policeman came out, and he said, you ain't gonna have no trouble. Just go on here. He said, you can take your gun, put it back in your car. I said, no, I'm going to keep it with me because I don't know if you're going to be here all night. And there was I'm telling you, it was a redneck bar. And Corbett used to have them parties. I mean, them were fun. Them were fun parties. Those went on for days, but we didn't stay for days because we'd go to them and then come back home.
And the Kismet used to have an annual
picnic, yeah.
Way out west.
In West here?
One of that area.
Yeah, yeah. And the guy, but always tickled me, the guy used to tell, he used to come up to Eddie, and he said, Eddie, he said, I love you dearly, and you pay a lot of money to have this party, but would you please tell your guys to quit fucking in my car?
It was around a farm area.
It was a farm area, and this guy held his car, and these guys was going fucking in this car.
So this was just like an all-day kind of thing?
Oh, it was all day. Oh, gracious, yes. It was all day. You go early in the morning and leave at night.
How about Corbett's party? How did that work?
What do you mean, how did it work?
Like, what time did people show up?
Oh, that was started in the evening.
Around 9.
9, and it went on for a day. It would go into Sunday.
And what sort of entertainment or what would...
Entertainment, yeah, you made the entertainment. It wasn't no special, you just partied. And I mean, when I mean party, I mean this thing got crazy. It got crazy. We'd always go, I'd always bring Keni home before it really got bad because, I mean, they was fucking on the stage, on the floor, in the back.
Daddy's recording.
Wow. I'm sorry, but that's what they were doing.
Is that still running?
Yeah.
Is it?
I'm sorry, but that's what they were doing.
Well,
I mean, there was nothing left to imagination. But we'd always be gone because I tell Keni, it's time to go.
what was the name of that bar downtown on High Street?
What?
In the back there. That bar was in the back of a furniture store.
Oh, you mean Ties?
Ties. You heard of that one?
Mm-hmm. It's where the city center's at. It was that area.
That was
a big bar.
That was the elite. That was for the elites.
But it was a nice bar.
That was for the elites. The guy that did it, him and his lover owned the brown bag, and he was a dancer in New York. He danced in New York and everything like that. Remember, he died of AIDS. His lover finally sold the brown bag to someone else.
Ties was very popular.
Yeah, but for the elite group, that was Harold Caldenham's group, Dolly and all that. Because Herbie had the spotlight, and they used to sell out. We'd go over there, and they said, "Well, you're the spotlight crowd. You can't afford our drinks in here." They said, "Are you selling them?" I said, "Yes." They said, "We can afford them."
There have been a lot.
They used to get so mad at us.
There's been a lot of bars.
Well, there's 32. There's 20. There's 30 in the Columbus now.
Probably.
There is.
There's a lot of them.
I have never, and most of them I have never been in.
Have you been to this new one, Q?
No, I have not been there.
It's big. It's nice.
I've heard it was very nice, but I've not been there.
I took Keni down there after, I had never been in it either. And after the Gay Pride Parade, I told Kenny, I said, now we're going to go to bars before we go home, because he doesn't like to go to a lot of bars. So I took him down to Q. We went to the Pyramid, and we went to Tremont.